You've been taught to chase it. Every moment of discomfort, of silence, of stillness is treated like something to escape. Every flicker of boredom is met with a screen. Every ache in the soul is met with noise, distraction, sugar, stimulation, and dopamine. You were taught that pain is the enemy and that pleasure is the prize. If you accumulate enough pleasure, string it together moment after moment, you'll arrive at some destination called happiness. But something's wrong, isn't it? Because the more comfort you seek, the more empty you feel. No one told you this, but pleasure is not peace. In fact, it may be the most effective way to numb the part of you that still remembers what it means to be alive. That faint voice you hear when everything goes quiet, the one that whispers there must be more than this, is not an enemy. It's the last echo of your real self, and you've been trained to silence it with comfort. Nietzsche saw this long before we did. Before Netflix, before dopamine science, before smartphones were engineered to hijack your nervous system, he saw it in the heart of modern man. This slow, subtle decay of the spirit beneath the weight of false pleasures. He called it the last man, a creature that no longer strives, no longer risks, no longer believes, a being who chooses comfort over greatness, safety over truth, numbness over transformation. The last man is not evil, he is not violent, he is worse. He is harmless, and in his harmlessness, he brings about the slow death of the human spirit. What is love? What is creation? What is longing? What is a star? The last man blinks. That doesn't concern me. He blinks and scrolls. Nietzsche wasn't warning us about tyrants. He was warning us about ourselves, when we become too afraid to suffer. You were not born to scroll yourself into oblivion, but every day you make a silent agreement. I'll trade depth for comfort. I'll trade becoming for convenience, and the world will smile, reward you, call you well-adjusted. They call it a life, but it's a slow surrender. What they never tell you is this: every time you numb your discomfort, you numb your potential. Every time you run from the friction of truth, you run from the fire that could purify you. Comfort doesn't make you free. It makes you forget what freedom even feels like. Why do you feel restless even when nothing's wrong? Why do you feel exhausted even when you've done nothing? Why do you feel like you're missing something even when you've got everything? Because you've been overdosing on comfort and starving for meaning. Welcome to The Still Observer. Here we analyze the hidden architecture of human thought, the unsettling truths of existence, and the silent forces that shape our reality. Subscribe to the channel for more cinematic explorations into consciousness, philosophy, and the questions most people are too afraid to ask. Nietzsche believed that man was not made to seek pleasure, but to overcome, not to find safety, but to create strength through struggle. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he prophesied the rise of a generation that would give up the mountain for the couch, a generation that would lose the will to ascend, and in doing so would forget who they are. And here you are, surrounded by comfort and slowly dying inside. No one told you the truth. Comfort is addictive, not because it heals, but because it hides. It hides the work. It hides the wounds. It hides the decisions you're avoiding. And the more you choose it, the more the fire in you goes cold. You weren't supposed to be comfortable. You were supposed to be on fire with purpose. But comfort doesn't ask that of you. It just wants you to keep scrolling, keep eating, keep pacifying the ache. And it has its priests, influencers selling you fast dopamine, algorithms trained to keep you quiet, self-help quotes that whisper, "You're perfect as you are." But Nietzsche would say, "No, you are unfinished. You are chaos. You are a question mark that must become an exclamation." Comfort says, "Rest. You've done enough." Nietzsche says, "Become who you are." And to become, you must burn. This is the tragedy. We confuse pleasure for happiness. We confuse safety for peace. But happiness without growth is sedation, and safety without meaning is just a padded cage. And you're not alone. A whole generation is trapped in a golden prison, aesthetically pleasing, endlessly entertaining, spiritually hollow. They live on the surface of themselves, and no one knocks on the door of their depth, until one day something breaks. A loss, a death, a silence too deep to ignore, and suddenly they remember what suffering is. They remember that life hurts, and strangely, that's when the real life begins. You don't grow in comfort, you grow in confrontation. When the mirror shows you everything you've denied, when the silence you've avoided sits across from you and speaks. Nietzsche didn't want you to suffer. He wanted you to stop running from the suffering that makes you real. So here's the truth you were never told. Constant pleasure is not a reward. It's the cost of your soul. And every time you avoid discomfort, you're not saving yourself. You're postponing your transformation. You were not made for ease. You were made to become. And to become, you must burn. So now you know. What you've been calling comfort is really decay. What you've mistaken for ease is erosion. What you thought was freedom is sedation in disguise. But what now? You can't know what's been said. The taste of your pleasures has changed. The screen feels different. The routine feels like a cage. And for the first time you're asking, if comfort kills the soul, then what brings it back to life? Nietzsche had an answer. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't meditation. It wasn't journaling. It wasn't manifestation or visualization or gratitude exercises. It was the most dangerous idea a human being can ever face, the will to power. Not the will to dominate others, not the will to control outcomes, but the will to face the chaos of life and turn it into meaning. The will to create, even when the world hands you rubble. The will to affirm existence, even its suffering, and still say, yes, I will become more. This is not a slogan. It is a terrifying demand. Because it means you can no longer blame your numbness on the world. You can no longer pretend that your life is someone else's fault. You can no longer worship comfort and wonder why you feel dead. To live, you must fight. But not out there, in here. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But here's the truth hiding underneath that quote. You have no why, not because the world took it from you, but because you traded it for something easier. Comfort is easy. Meaning is not. Pleasure is easy. The purpose is not. The crowd is easy. Becoming is not. And if you want to reclaim your soul, you must stop negotiating with ease. You must look directly at the parts of yourself that you've buried under routine. You must look at the cowardice that dresses up as calmness, the apathy that wears the mask of peace, the fear of change that cloaks itself in stability. The harsh truth? You've called it being content. But deep down, you know it's just quiet surrender. Nietzsche didn't want you to become happy. He wanted you to become strong. Because strength is what lets you carry happiness when it finally comes. Otherwise, it passes through you like the wind. You feel good for a moment, and then it's gone, because there's no structure inside you to hold it, no form to shape it, no will to wield it. He believed that suffering was not the enemy of life, but its raw material, that through suffering a person could forge themselves into something unshakable, but only if they faced it willingly, only if they embraced the chaos, not as a punishment, but as a forge. One must still have chaos in oneself, he wrote, to be able to give birth to a dancing star. This isn't a metaphor, it's a blueprint. Do you want to create something beautiful with your life? Then you must first confront the swirling chaos inside you, the contradictions, the confusion, the fear, the darkness, but not to fix them, to face them, to use them, to burn with them, because that's the secret you've never been told. Your suffering is not your curse, it's your canvas. You feel hollow not because you failed, but because you've never demanded anything more of yourself than survival. You've never looked at your own pain and said, I will make something of this. You've numbed it, avoided it, cursed it, but you've never claimed it. And until you do, you will remain fragmented. There is a version of you on the other side of all this. Not happier, not more successful, not more accepted, but more whole. A version of you who does not seek comfort, but chooses intensity. A version that no longer needs to be liked because they are aligned. A version who is not afraid to walk alone because their path burns with meaning. That version of you does not live in some future after success, after healing, after validation. That version lives right behind the thing you're most afraid to face. Nietzsche didn't believe in false hope. He believed in becoming. And becoming doesn't happen in the light. It happens in the dark, in the discomfort, in the moments when you realize you could run, but choose to stay. That is power, and it is terrifying, because when you finally stop blaming the world, you see it. The full weight of your own choices, the time you've wasted, the things you've avoided, the lies you've told yourself, but you also see something else. The spark that has never died, the spark that flickers even now, beneath the noise, the fatigue, the scrolling. That spark is your will, and no one can give it to you. No book, no quote, no guru. It is yours, and it is waiting. It is waiting for you to stop being a spectator in your own existence, waiting for you to stop settling for this shallow, twitching simulation of life, waiting for you to reclaim your suffering and shape it into strength. This world will never hand you meaning. You must forge it yourself. And that forging, that fire, that's what Nietzsche meant. Not comfort, not happiness, but transformation through fire. So here's the final truth, the one that will cost you everything. You can keep chasing comfort, or you can become. But you cannot have both. One is warm, but hollow. The other is brutal, but real. One will make the days pass faster. The other will make you feel them again. One will let you sleep easier. The other will wake you up. So choose. But know this. The gods you admire were not born in luxury. The truths that move you were not whispered in comfort. The soul you're looking for, your real self, has always been waiting in the fire. And it still is. Now step into it.